This is the politician Sir Keir Starmer. He's not just any politician. He's the leader of the Labour Party and he wants to become the next Prime Minister.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm very good.
And he's come to the FYI studio at Sky headquarters.
You did, didn't you interview Boris Johnson?
Yeah.
No, that was...
Boris Johnson with Braden. So who is Keir Starmer? And why should we listen to what he has to say?
I do think it's time that the court system became much more of a place where the ordinary person feels they can go.
Well, he used to be a lawyer. In fact, he became Sir Keir Starmer when he was awarded a knighthood for services to the criminal justice system.
I'm like a recent one to the...
So you're the new addition?
Yeah, I'm a new addition to, to the team. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Just 5 years after becoming a politician, he was elected by the political party Labour to be their leader.
Now that's a big deal. Since 1922, we've either had a Conservative or Labour Party Prime Minister. For over 100 years, these parties have been the two main players when it comes to winning elections.
So ours is just Studio 8
and 8 on the left, right.
Okay.
For the last 13 years, the Conservatives have been in power. Sir Keir Starmer says it's time for a change. But how different would it be if he were in charge?
So you're gonna sit and you're gonna pop your mic on right here. So you're gonna pop your mic on right.
Here on FYI, we feel people our age should get a say on things that affects us, even if we don't get a vote. And so we asked Mr. Starmer to come on FYI and take questions from you and us. And he said yes.
3, 2, and action.
Mr. Starmer, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's fantastic to be here. I've seen some of the other interviews you've done, so it's fantastic work. And you've won a BAFTA, I think.
Yeah.
Yes,
So you must be buzzing.
So first, you're called the leader of the opposition. So briefly, what do you actually do?
The opposition are the political party that didn't win the election and therefore are not running the government. So we've got really two main jobs. The first is to oppose the government. Everything they put forward, we test it, we argue about it, make sure they're doing the right thing, and if they're not doing the right thing, we point it out.
I will keep fighting until we get it.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is biting his tongue, but the other thing we do is to prepare for the next election. In the hope that we will win that election and therefore not be the leader of the opposition, but be the Prime Minister in government.
You haven't been the government in 13 years. I mean, that's nearly my entire life.
Don't rub it in. This is getting
It's
tough.
nearly my entire life. Well, in the hope of getting elected, you've pledged that you will deliver a better economy, national health service, tackle crime, the climate crisis, and deliver a better education for all of us. But if you Google party pledges, loads of leaders have promised that time and time again. So why do you think we should trust you and believe you're actually going to do all of that?
Well, I think it's really important that we've only said 5 things. So a lot of people who want to be in government say, oh, we do everything you want, you know, you just name it, we'll do it. We've said, no, we're going to be really, really focused on the things you've identified, and climate change is a really big one of those. Obviously, the test in the end of whether people trust us is when we get to that general election.
So viewers and members from our FYI news clubs at schools have been sending in their questions.
Yes, right, OK. So is this where we see them?
Yeah,
This is our first.
OK.
So here's Halima from Glasgow.
Hi, I'm Halima and I'm from Glasgow. I think that everyone should have the right to strike, especially in the midst of a cost of living crisis. But do you think it's fair that people we rely on can go and strike, like teachers, doctors, nurses and ambulance workers?
I do. I think it's really important that everyone has the right to go on strike, because if you don't have the right to go on strike, you don't really have the ability to improve your pay and your conditions and your circumstances at work.
Even if it affects our education or the emergency services?
No nurse really wants to go on strike, but they feel very strongly at the moment that they haven't been paid properly, haven't been respected properly, and they're at the end of their tether. I think the way to resolve it is for the government to get in a room and sort it out with them.
Okay.
What do you think? What do you think about people going on strike?
Well,
are your schools affected?
Well, obviously the school children are like happy, yay, no school, but...
That was the general theme in our house.
But, you know, with the cost of living, they're going to get paid more, and then if the cost of living goes up, they're going to have to keep getting paid more.
Scott, this is such a really important point. That's why The first of the things you said to me that we're going to do in government is to grow the economy, because even if people have paid a bit more this year, if the economy isn't getting better, and it hasn't been getting better for over 10 years now, then we're going to be back in the same position in a year's time.
Hi, my name is Olivia and I'm from Bergen in Northern Ireland. My question for the Labour leader is, if you were Prime Minister, would you make all schools green and talk about solar panels?
Yeah, so she's asking if you'd put solar panels on all schools across the UK.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in solar panels on schools. In the primary school where my children went, they had a big project to get the solar panels on schools. But I think we need to do much more than that, because I think the climate crisis is the biggest challenge that we all face. It's going to be huge for you, because it's your future we're talking about here. And therefore we need wind turbines off in the sea, on land. We need to make sure that we're not relying on oil and gas in the way we have done for a very long time.
So, would you reduce the age we vote from 18 to 16, letting younger people get a chance to say on things like climate change?
Yes, I've long believed that we should have votes for 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds, because you can leave school and go to work then. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we should be able to vote because we're the future, and we should be able to have a say on what goes on around us and, how we want the world to be for generations to come.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of younger people, even in my year, a lot of people are really interested in politics already, so they're waiting for the chance to vote, waiting for the chance to get their say on things.
That's really good to hear.
So our next question is from an FYI News Club member in Northern Ireland.
Hello, my name is Mimi, and I come from a family that is really struggling with the rising cost of things. I live in a single-parent household, and we are only ever one unexpected bill away from not being able to eat or stay warm. Mr. Starmer, politicians like you talk a lot about how to help families like mine, but what experience of poverty do you actually have?
That's a really good question, and I don't know whether you know much about me and how I grew up, but I'll be very quick. My dad was a toolmaker, so he worked in a factory, and my mum was a nurse, but she was also, sadly, very ill, and so she couldn't work for very long. So actually we didn't have a lot of money coming in, and when we had a cost of living crisis when I was about your age, we couldn't pay the bills. That question, I think, reflects what a lot of families are feeling across the country, really, really anxious about paying their bills. And I think part of the job of politicians is to, one, understand that. And if you have experienced it, I think you can understand it better.
Free school meals for all pupils would help, but that just isn't the case. It depends on where you live, and that really isn't fair. The Labour Party leader before you demanded free school meals for all. Do you?
We're looking at this, but we are careful and making sure that whatever we say going into the next election, which will probably be next year, I don't know for sure, is fully costed. So everything that we are putting forward, we say should be fully costed. One of our policies is a breakfast club at schools for all schools.
Breakfast clubs, it just seems like you're willing to pay for the cheapest option, like the cheapest meal of the day.
Well, it doesn't have to be like that. They're different in different schools, but it should be good food, but also support for children going into breakfast club, but also, really importantly, for parents to be able to go to work.
Our next question is about a long-running issue. For many years, thousands of people from countries affected by poverty have been trying to get into the UK from the French coast. They pay criminal gangs to help them across the English Channel in small boats. The Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has just announced plans to arrest and deport anyone caught trying to get into the UK illegally like this. The issue is amongst those using small boats are genuine refugees and asylum seekers fleeing war and violence.
Hi, I'm Arvid. I'm from Iran and I'm a refugee living in the UK.
My family had to leave Iran for our own safety. We ended up in Calais in France, and then we had no choice but to cross the English Channel in a dinghy towards England, like so many families before us.
Mr. Starmer, the government says that they want to work with the French authorities to stop people reaching the UK on a boat, like my family did. But what about working with the French to help provide a safe route to the UK for genuine refugees like me? Would you do that?
So this is a really good question from Arvin. As you will know, in this country, we've always been very welcoming of refugees for many, many years. with different conflicts and things going on in the world. And we should have safe passages, in answer to the question, for people to get here. Going across the Channel in a boat is not a safe route.
Yes.
And behind that, there are criminal gangs that are running those routes. And so they are making money out of the misery of people who are in a desperate, desperate situation. So we need safe routes so that we don't have unsafe routes like the Channel crossings, and we don't allow those gangs to exploit people and put them in that awfully dangerous situation.
Hi, my name's Crystal, and I have to take care of my parents and my sister. Mum and Dad are poorly and can't work. Money is tight right now. My sister has ADHD and autism, meaning that she suffers from outbursts when she gets frustrated. I love caring for my family, but it's hard when you have school. This means that I can't always hang out with my friends. There are thousands of children like me who care for their parents because there aren't enough professional adult carers. What would you do about it?
I think firstly we should just say Crystal's amazing, isn't she?
Yes.
I mean, to do that at her age
And go to school.
is just incredible. Really, really incredible. She shouldn't be put in that position. And our question is obviously, well, what are you going to do to make sure there are professionals there? I know a bit about this because my sister's actually a care worker. I think that one of the reasons we don't have enough professionals is that the pay and conditions for care workers, professionals, is so bad that many people will come in, do it for a while and then leave again. It's one of the biggest problems. So we've got to have better pay, better conditions, and that should be across the whole of the country.
Well, our next question is from somebody who you might recognise.
Hi, I am Eva Lovely. I am a comedian and I got through to the finals of Britain's Got Talent. I have a disability called cerebral palsy, which means I have wobbly legs and wobbly arms, and my speech is a lot slower. Sometimes it can make life really hard. My question for Keir Starmer is, what would a Labour government do to educate young people on how to treat people with disabilities?
My answer to that would be to make sure that we integrate children with disabilities into our schools all of the time. I've seen this done in some primary schools, and it was fantastic because you had young people at primary school age growing up in the same school environment with people with quite severe disabilities and understanding, being friends, helping them. And it was an incredible experience. And I think that is so much better than sort of trying to teach people in a classroom about disabilities.
So before you go, we have a burning question that is a matter of national debate amongst people our age right now. So here's Mitchell.
My brother thinks pineapple belongs on pizza. It's disgusting. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
I do not have pineapple on pizza. But we've got a rule on a Friday that however busy I am, I'll stop work and we'll always have a night in with our two. So our boy's 14, our girl is 12. And the big discussion is, because we always have a takeaway, like, what are we going to have? Pizza's always there. Our little girl is always lobbying for pizza, but not pineapple for me.
No, we don't like pineapple.
Sure, a lot of world leaders haven't asked that one.
That's a very important question, what's your favourite pizza?
So last one from me, this is kind of like a two-in-one question. So I'm 12. If you could go back in time and tell your 12-year-old self something, what would it be? I mean, I know back in the days, you wanted to become a pro footballer and try out for Arsenal. Good choice, by the way. I'm an Arsenal supporter. Top of the league.
Top of the league. We are. So, yeah, I mean, I wanted to be a footballer till I realised I wasn't good enough to be a footballer. And did all the usual things of a 12-year-old boy, what you want to be. If I gave one piece of advice to both of you and to all young people, it would be believe in yourself and that you can do it. And you may think, well, that's a bit odd, that bit of advice. But when I was your age, because I came from a working class background, I didn't think that someone like me would be an MP. I really didn't think someone like me would lead the Labour Party, and I really, really didn't think someone like me would ever be Prime Minister. There's something in my head that was saying, that's not the sort of thing that you're going to be doing here.
Because they think if they're not
Really
from a
for me.
certain background, they can't do something, but you can achieve anything if you really care about
That's such an important thing, and it's really important that both of you say that as well, because for other people of your age, coming from you will be far, far more powerful than coming from me, so keep saying it.
Well, Mr. Starmer, thank you so much for coming here on FYI and answering all of our questions.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And coming soon on FYI, we'll be putting your questions to the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak.
And for more info on some of the subjects we've been discussing with the Labour leader, check out our video explainers and reports on our webpage, first.news/FYI.
Fantastic. Good to see you. See you next time. See you next time. Thank you.